In this video, we're going to be taking a look at working with CorelDRAW macros um, and how it can really impact our workflow. So we're going to be taking a look at creating some CorelDRAW macros, looking at the code of existing macros, and then just kind of figuring out some different things that we can do. So couple things. This is a design for an LED sign, LED neon sign. And let's say, for example, I want to be able to delete all the text from this design. So I've created a macro that does that for me. I just click on delete text and it deletes all of our text. So that's pretty nifty, right? What if I wanted to select all my text? So you can see here in the object manager we have text shapes and curve shapes, but for whatever reason, I need to work with a certain, could be a certain color of shape, it could be a certain type of shape. There's all kinds of reasons why we want to grab something from a bigger selection. So in this case, I want to grab all of my text shapes to do something with them. So that's what these select text functions for. Click, and if you go back to Object Manager, now you can see we have just text shapes selected. So pretty useful function right there. All right, so now what if I wanted to do something a little bit different? What if I wanted to not only select all my text shapes, but I also wanted to change the color of them? Let's say, I don't know what color I want, but let's just say I want to change the color of them. Well, I'll show you how we could do that in this example. So first of all, let's look at some code. So let's right click and choose this edit command here. And you can see here, this is our delete text. So the code is real simple. Now, here's what I would encourage you to do. Here's what I did. I went on YouTube, and I will link to the course. It's a free course, but it's called Visual Basics for Applications. And in the video course, I think the whole course is not very long. It's like 6 hours maybe. I don't know. It's not that much time. But really, you only need to watch maybe the first 2 or 3 hours because it gives you some of the very basics of VBA. All right? It's not complicated stuff. You can see this code, it's very simple code. So it's not complicated stuff, but what it can do for you in terms of your workflow is just absolutely phenomenal. It can do all kinds of things, and it can get very complicated. But for what I'm going to demonstrate to you, really simple stuff. All right, so if we look at the code, it says dim SR text as new shape range. Okay, so SR text, that could be anything. That is not VBA, okay? That is just us telling VBA something. Now, the dim, that's a VBA variable, right? Shape range is a VBA variable. It doesn't matter if we're using CorelDRAW. It doesn't matter if we're using Excel. We use ranges in both applications, okay? So at any rate, when you're watching those Excel VBA videos, don't be discouraged, like, why am I learning about Excel? Because it does translate quite well to CorelDRAW too, certain elements of it. Enough of it where it's useful. So don't think you're wasting your time because you're learning about Microsoft Excel. No, you're learning about VBA in Excel to apply those same principles to CorelDRAW. So it'll still be quite useful for you. So at any rate, the SR text could be anything. Now the reason it says SR text is because of what we're doing here. So we're creating a shape range for text shapes. So that's why it's just helpful for us to understand what it is we're naming and doing. So, but like I said, this could literally be anything. This could be CHV blue as new shape range. It could be anything. This is just for our own personal use. Okay. Now we're moving on. It's saying, so we're telling it to create a new shape range called SR text. And then what do we want to do with that shape range? Well, we want to set the SR text shape range to equal a CDR text shape. And all of this code is CorelDRAW stuff, okay? So we're telling it to take the active selection to shapes. So we want shapes of the active selection. We're going to find shapes of this particular type, okay? And if we select active selection, for example, and we want to learn a little bit more about it, all we can do is we can right click and we could choose the object browser, and that will sometimes take us to where we need to. You can see it didn't in this case, but if we type in active selection, it's kind of weird. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we type in active selection and then right click and choose help. Then we get some additional information from CorelDRAW, and it gives us a little example of code as well. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And if you look at this code, we're gonna come back to that. But so you see here, it says dim equals as shape for each S. So dim S as shape. So for each S in the active selection range of shapes, if S type equals a CD ellipse, then do this. Okay, so this is creating an if. Okay, um, so there is really good little code snippets in here that could help us do certain things as well. So we might come back to that because there is some good code information in there that we might come back to. So I just wanted to let you know that there is a way to get there. So any code that you see that you want information for or doesn't make sense, let's go back in here to view code. Any code, like for example, if we take CDR text shape here, let's just copy that, and let's go back under the view menu, go to that object browser. You can print this out, by the way. You can print this out. There is documentation to tell you what all those things are. So you definitely can do that. But here we are, CDR text shape. Go to the help menu, and it will talk about the CDR shape type, which in this case is a text shape. But we can also find no shapes. If there's no shapes, rectangle shapes, ellipses, curves, polygons, bitmaps, text shapes. It tells us that, see, it says specifies text. So we know that that's a text shape. And there's other things in the programming that we can use a value. So example, CDR text shape equals 6. So that's where some of the values are returned to in the code for certain purposes too. But that's, that's future stuff. So let's go back into the view code here. So if you want more information about what this is and how it all works, it's pretty easily accessible. Okay. So so getting back to selecting our shapes here, we are setting our shape range to equal text shapes, and then we're telling it to take our text range and create a selection of that text range. And then if we wanted to do something beyond that, we could. We could definitely do that. So when down here where it says delete text, we have almost the same code, but in this case we're SR text is a shape range. We're setting our SR text to be only text shapes, but then we're telling the text range, the shape range, to delete. Instead of create selection, we're deleting it. Okay. Now, what if we wanted to do something else? So remember, we said that we wanted to select our text shapes, and then we want to change the fill color. Well, could we do that? Yes, we can, but we have to do it a little bit differently. So we are going to come back in here. So we want to do something to our active selection. I'm going to go back in and show you this again. So let's go back in and choose active selection, copy that, go to the object browser, and we're going to paste that in here. And then we are going to right click and look at the help menu. Because remember I talked about code. It shows us some code. So I want to copy all of this code. Okay, and then let's go back in and look at, I'm just going to paste it right in here, look at what we can utilize here. So we are going to do dim. We could use dim S. Let's just use what they give us, okay? So what we're saying is we're saying, so we've created a shape range and we defined what that shape range should be, which in this case is text shapes. And then we're going in and we're saying dim S is shape, and it's saying for each S in the in for each S in, we could do SR text. We want to do something. So for each S in SR text, we want to take the S and apply a uniform fill color. Okay, and we can do RGB assign. That's probably more common than CMYK. So we do RGB assign and assign what RGB value. Okay. So we are not going to have an if in here, but this is what they call a for loop. So for each shape in SR text, take the shape and fill uniform fill RGB value. We're going to figure out what the RGB value should be here momentarily. So for now, we could just leave it 100, 100, 100 just to see if it will go through. Now you see it says next S. Okay, you could do next. You could do next X. So you could do next, and it would just go on to the next, or you could just say next S, and it would process the next step in our shape range. Okay, so then we don't want to end sub, because that will end the function. So we don't want to do that, because once it's changed all of our colors, then what we want to do is we want to take our shape range and create a selection. Okay, so let's go ahead and close out, and let's see if that code actually works. Yes, it was select text. Ta-da! Works. There you go. So that I just picked a random RGB value, but it changed all of our shapes to purple. But let's do that again. I'm going to undo that, and see when I undo that, see how I have to undo, and it's undoing each individual shape by itself, right? Well, there's an option that we can add to this. So when I hit undo, it will undo in one step. But let's try this. Let's do this again. Select text. Okay, I wanted to make sure that the final endpoint was that the text was actually selected. Beautiful. All right. So and just so we know, we can do we could do something called a command group that will allow us to undo a series of steps. So now in our select tool and our select function here, we are doing multiple steps because we're processing multiple pieces and applying a fill color. Okay. Now I don't know. Yeah, I don't think we can do that. So, but anyhow, so there's a function called a command group. So let's go into the view menu and look at the object browser and see if we can get some information about command group. So this says begin command group. So let's choose help and see. Now sometimes it will give us a a snippet of code, which in this case it didn't. So, but I do know that that function exists. So let's go back over here. So we could choose right here. We could type in begin. Choose begin command group. And then down here, we will choose end command group. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that out and see if this works. So we'll select text, and you can see that it says it's not defined. And so what that means is, so we'll choose active document dot begin command group, and you can see now that is an option. And then and the same thing here, active document. It's just sometimes it's just finicky. So there we go. I got to learn how to spell. Met. Okay. So active document, end command group, start command group. Now we're cooking with fire. So, so now let me do this. Let me change it all to purple, or to orange, I mean. And so we are going to select our text. It's going to change them all to purple, but if I undo that, hit Control Z, it puts them all back to orange. So that's what that function does. So that might be useful. All right. So let me go back in here because we don't actually want to do that. So we don't need a command group. So let's delete that. And we don't need any of this. We don't need this. Right? And then we don't need any of that. So we're back to square one here. So we're selecting text and we're deleting text. So if I select my text, there we go. I can grab my text tool, and I need to change the size of my text. I could do that very quickly and easily. So that's what I need to be able to do. So that's why I created that function. And then there may come a time where I want to delete my text altogether. Okay. So I hope this kind of spurs you to look into CorelDRAW macros a little bit more, and kind of give you some ideas of how we can kind of poke our way through and create some pretty interesting functions. Now, I'm going to end this video here, but I am going to create another video that, if this interested you, you might want to check out, because what we're going to do is, let me just show you real quick. We're going to create what they call a user form. And in this user form, we already have a button that says delete text. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our code and apply it to a button in a little menu here, so we can click on that button to delete our text. And so we're going to show you how to migrate that code to this form in our next video. So thanks for watching.